An inquisitive youngster offers his actual administrations to the forlorn ladies who live in his family's manor. In 1914, in the French open country, Mrs. Muller and Roger ride a pony-drawn carriage toward his family's manor. During the excursion, his eyes are attracted to the more seasoned lady's adequate chest. What's more, he makes an honest effort to turn away his look. Outside the lofty chateau, his mom and Auntie Marguerite invited him home. One of the house cleaners, Ursula, assists with his sacks and inquires as to whether he actually recollects her in the wake of being away for quite a long time, and he certifies. Mr. Forthcoming, his dad's companion, waves from the loft window. Inside the house, Roger's sister, Berthe, welcomes him with a warm embrace. Afterwards, while the kin walk around the property, they run into Mrs. Muller, who's recently gotten done with picking natural products. Her better half cruises by, and Berthe welcomes the more established man. Unexpectedly, Mrs. Muller lifts up her dress and eases herself, astonishing the high schooler. While straying without help from anyone else, Roger spots Mr. Muller in the woods supplicating in front of an image of his significant other, while stuffing different blossoms into his jeans. The youngster steps on a twig, and the clamor cautions the more established man. In this way, Roger takes off, and in his rush, he outings and tumbles to the ground. Seconds after the fact, he hears laughing close by also, follows the clamor. Incredibly, he observes Ursula having intercourse with Adolf, one of the manor's male laborers. At the point when the lady sees the high schooler peeping, she just giggles and welcomes him a decent morning, causing the humiliated Roger to escape. At dinner, the youngster gazes inquisitively at Ellen, an appealing servant. Mr. Blunt gets some information about her little girl Eliza's beau, and she makes sense of that he's a lieutenant in the military. She shows the man an image of the couple, and when Berthe makes a mean comments about the photo, she requires the tutor, Kate, to take her girl to bed. Minutes after the fact, Roger pardons himself, and when he kisses his auntie "Great evening," the lady rejects him with a second kiss on her cheek. That evening, as the youngster plans for bed, he hears a commotion from the foyer. At the point when he explores, he sees Ellen having intercourse to a secret man through an open entryway. He gets back to his room, and when he pulls back his sheets, sees that Berthe is on his bed. The young lady says she isn't tired, what's more, wishes to keep having a discussion with her sibling, whom she's missed truly. She says that their mom referenced that Marguerite stays virtuous on the grounds that she's apprehensive of men. At the point when Roger inquires as to why Mr. Plain and his auntie aren't together, the young lady says she believes it's since the man is ugly and a piece of prove Berthe for leaving her bed. In this way, the young lady scrambles back to her room. The tutor sees the youngster's rising sheets and attempts to pull off the covers. What's more, the humiliated Roger conceals himself. The following day, the kin watch the house cleaners from across the stream as they dunk their feet in the water. Ursula and Ellen ask Mrs. Muller about her significant other, and the more established lady trusts that he actually has issues in the room. Minutes after the fact, Adolf and Valentine energetically bother the ladies from across the water, inciting Ursula to go along with the men by flaunting her uncovered posterior. Roger sees this and is in shock at the sight. Sometime thereafter, their dad and sister Eliza shows up, and the remainder of the family welcomes them by the means. Inside, Berthe and Roger investigate their dad's award tests. The more established man mourns about how business has dialed back since no conflict implies no interest in military awards. That evening, while the house cleaners and Adolf cooperate to pull supplies up into the stable, the man gets Roger looking up Ursula's skirt and energetically throws feed on him. Afterwards, Berthe takes her sibling to the house of prayer and they sneak to an unfinished plumbing space over the admission stall. She says she found it unintentionally and has gone through numerous hours listening in. After his sister leaves, Roger stays behind and pays attention to his auntie Marguerite's admission to Father Gabriel. Amazingly, his auntie uncovers that she's had improper considerations about Roger. At the point when the high schooler creeps forward, the roof gives way, making him fall into the cleric's admission stall and stunning his auntie. Afterwards, Eliza's beau Roland shows up, and he observes Roger's discipline. That evening, Berthe solaces her crying sibling and gives him a kiss goodnight. Minutes after the fact, he hears Ellen and the secret man having intercourse in the passage once more. By a bureau, he sees Mr. Straightforward watching the servant, also. Then, he experiences Ursula, who says she doesn't realize who Ellen's secret sweetheart is, all things considered. Roger heads to the upper room, where he sees Mr. Straightforward utilizing his telescope. After the man pardons himself, the youngster looks through the telescope and sees a couple having intercourse on the grass outside. He then tracks down a book on Mr. Forthcoming's table, furthermore, places it in his pocket similarly as the man returns. Prior to leaving, Roger inquires as to whether he, as well, felt baffled as a youngster, and the man says he actually has that impression at times. Coming back, the high schooler looks into his guardian's room. Nonetheless, Roland gets him and takes steps to let his folks know what he did, so Roger tells the man he'll do anything he inquires. The following day, Roland orders the youngster to wash his vehicle before them, and when the official gets in the vehicle to kiss the lady, Roger slips the water container under him, making the man slip and fall. Sometime thereafter, the high schooler conceals in the chicken coop and opens up Mr. Blunt's book of grown-up delineations and compositions. Out of nowhere, Adolf enters to spread feed on the ground. Then, at that point, Ellen shows up through the window to take care of the chickens. The man moves toward her. What's more, out of the blue, he shuts the window, catching her in the little opening. Ellen asks Roger for help, but she quickly alters her perspective when Adolf has intercourse with her from outside. The high schooler exits the coop and sees the servants in covered posterior. He gets back to the house, and keeping in mind that Eliza is diverted, he switches her book with Mr. Candid's grown-up book. He then, at that point, affronts Roland's shoes, provoking the man to let his mom know that he was peeping into their room the previous evening. The mother orders Roger to leave the room. In any case, the high schooler stops in the corner to ensure that his sister gets the book. Afterwards, he looks as Eliza pursues the grown-up book under a tree. In the kitchen, the youngster shocks Ursula while she's bustling removing the food from the broiler. The stunned lady responds by breaking a plate over his head. At the point when she understands it's Roger, she keeps an eye on his physical issue, while interestingly squeezing her body near his face. Unexpectedly, another servant enters, intruding on the pair. Not entirely settled to turn into a man, Roger at long last follows Mrs. Mueller to the second story of the house of prayer. She peers out the little window to tell her better half to stop asking about the special stepped area. Unexpectedly, the adolescent goes into the room and starts contacting the more seasoned lady improperly. From the start, the lady ultimately energizes him by lifting up her skirt. A courier from outside hinders them. Furthermore, the lady surges out of the room. Outside, the courier illuminates the specialists that Germany has proclaimed a battle on France. In the meantime, in the manor, the rich family praises the insight about battle, since it implies military awards will before long be popular. That night, the male laborers of the manor take advantage of their last evening and go off on rendezvous with the female specialists. Roger attempts to get in on the activity, but finds that every other person has previously brought together, his mistake. The following day, Berthe and her mom observe Eliza bid goodbye to Roland. Simultaneously, the female staff individuals go with the men as they leave the estate on a pony-drawn carriage. Returning, the ladies each give the high schooler knowing looks. Sometime thereafter, Ursula requests that Roger help her convey a sleeping cushion higher up. In the room, he takes action on the lady, who's entertained by the unpracticed high schooler's advances. In the long run, the lady shuts the entryway, strips down before Roger, and they have intercourse. After the deed, the cheerful high schooler declares his affection for Ursula and requests that she wed him. The lady chuckles cheerfully on the grounds that she understands he just communicated the feeling since it's his most memorable time lying down with the lady. Minutes after the fact, Berthe sees her sibling's torn shirt and concludes that he recently wrapped up carrying out the thing. She then illuminates her sibling that their moms as of now addressing Father Gabriel. Thus, they head to the lounge room to listen in on the discussion. The mother discusses her and her better half's concerns in the room, and the cleric exhorts her to just be available and open to satisfying her significant other, particularly now, in the hour of war. Out of nowhere, the lady hears Out of nowhere, the lady hears her kids laughing and condemns them for listening in. Afterward, while Kate brushes her hair by the stream, Roger shows up in the water and amazements her. He inquires as to why she never used to sit by the waterway, and she says this is on the grounds that she no longer feels in peril since the men have left for war. The high schooler concedes that he's constantly viewed as her alluring. Then, at that point, he stands up from the water to uncover that he's clothless. He then energetically sprinkles water onto the tutor, and soon the two participate in pleasurable exercises. Days after the fact, Eliza hurries to inform her family that Roland made the paper, later bringing down a third plane. The grown-ups spout over the conflict legend's fortitude. Also, Eliza brings up that her sweetheart is wearing one of her dad's awards in the image. That evening, Kate and Marguerite peep into the guardian's room. Seconds after the fact, Roger goes along with them. That high schooler opens the entryway and sits on the seat to watch his folks. The couple participates in a pretending action where his dad imagines that he's going to administer the lady's execution. At last, the man sees his child. Furthermore, the high schooler leaves the room, leaving his folks humiliated and confused. Minutes after the fact, Marguerite gets back to her room and shockingly finds her nephew sitting on her bed. He asks her for a goodnight kiss, so the lady gives him a kiss on the cheek. At the point when the high schooler explains that he'd like a kiss very much like the ones she used to give him when he was a youngster, the stunned lady tells him to leave or probably she'll call his mom. As he's going to leave, he says he hears strides drawing nearer. Thus, the auntie asks who the guest is and discovers that it's Mr. Blunt who's come to peruse her of a sonnet he composed for her. While the ignorant man presents the sonnet purporting his affection for Marguerite, Roger takes her back to the bed. He turns the Mother Mary sculpture so it faces the wall, just before the lady plays out a pleasurable demonstration. Outside the entryway, Mr. Blunt hears commotions from inside the room. The following day, Roger sees that Mr. Straightforward just got a bundle. Thus, he follows the man to the storage room and sees that he's looking inside a wooden box that permits an individual to see grown-up pictures. The high schooler asks the individual for what valid reason he doesn't simply lay down with genuine ladies, so Mr. Honest makes sense of such an undertaking is just simple for somebody like Roger. That evening, while Ellen strolls a few doors down, the adolescent calls her into his room. He asks the house cleaner who she thinks is the secret man who has intercourse with her in the corridors, since he knows it's neither his dad nor Mr. Honest. Ellen says she thinks it was Mr. Mueller. However, the youngster advises her that Mrs. Mueller says her significant other again act in the room. The servant believes this is on the grounds that he can do as such with his sweetheart. At the point when the housekeeper is going to leave, Roger stops her by the entryway and has intercourse with her the same way her secret darling used to. The following day, Berthe inquires as to whether he carried out the thing with the tutor and he certifies. She concedes that Kate and the housekeepers told her Roger did it with every one of them. At the point when the young lady inquires as to whether he's had intercourse with Marguerite, he says they didn't carry out the thing totally. Then, Eliza passes by on her pony, so the adolescent follows the lady into the corrals. While the lady brushes her pony, Roger offers to take off her shoes from her hurting feet. In any case, the adolescent starts contacting the lady improperly. Eliza attempts to stop her sibling, yet they hear Mrs. Mueller enter the corrals. While the more seasoned lady is caught up with tending to the pony in the stable close to them, Eliza at long last yields and has intercourse with Roger. Outside, Berthe sees her sibling leaving the pens and reasons that he recently completed the process of doing the deed with another person. Seconds after the fact, she sees Eliza. Furthermore, the young lady acknowledges what simply occurred. That evening, Ursula and Ellen enter Roger's room simultaneously to have intercourse to him. After the deed, the ladies leave the room. Ursula sees Marguerite advance toward the adolescent's room, and when she sees Kate, she illuminates the necessary tutor in Roger's room. As she's going to leave, the house cleaner alters her perspective what's more, chooses to join the exercises. The following morning, Ursula awakens and leaves the dozing Roger, Kate, and Marguerite on the bed. Days after the fact, after the youngster and Eliza make love, the lady uncovers that she may be pregnant. Also, idea what to do. Unexpectedly, a plane soars over, so she hauls Roger behind a tree so Roland doesn't detect them. After the conflict legend sets down the plane, the family welcomes him, and he joyfully illuminates them that he's been elevated to commander. Returning to the house, a carriage conveying the male laborers who've gotten back from war cruises by. Afterward, the house cleaners and the laborers suspend Adolf by his harmed leg to stretch it. Out of nowhere, a crying Mrs. Mueller passes by and illuminates them that her significant other kicked the bucket in the conflict, inciting different housekeepers to comfort her. That evening, Ursula goes into Roger's space to tell him that she's pregnant. He recommends that she wed Adolf, however the lady denies, since he's a challenged person now. Thus, she considers wedding Valentine, regardless of whether he's lost one eye. Before she leaves, the youngster requests that she present to him a container of red nail clean. After the house cleaner leaves, Marguerite shows up to let him know that she's additionally pregnant. In this way, Roger proposes she wed Mr. Honest, whom he considers a pleasant man who's plainly infatuated with her. Before long, Ursula gets back with the red nail clean, so the high schooler takes her with him to Eliza's room. There, he trains the servant to put some nail clean on his sister's sheets. Incensed, Eliza advises Ursula to stop and takes the container of nail clean from her. To quiet the ladies down, Roger advises the servant to sit tight for him in his room while he addresses his sister. He advises Eliza to track down Roland, and that's what let him know they should have intercourse right away. Thus, Eliza goes to track down the confused beau. Roger gets back to his space to bring Marguerite, and takes her to the loft to accompany Mr. Blunt. In the flight of stairs, the high schooler hears Eliza persuading Roland that they can rest together before marriage, since Father Gabriel said it's okay to do as such during wartime. Then, Roger heads to Kate's space to inquire as to whether she's pregnant. To his help, she says no, meaning that he's figured out how to take care of all his potential issues.